lady that I'm introducing tonight, pretty amazing. I was asked on Thursday to introduce her, and I looked her up online, and I was just like, wow. She founded Dancers Without Borders. She founded Another World is Possible road shows, and also she founded Art and Revolution, which is a national movement of artist activists. She's the co-founder of Art in Action Youth Leadership Program, which offers uplifting programs for young urban artists. Most recently, her current position is she's the Senior Community Engagement Strategist at Green for All. So to give her a good power shift welcome tonight, I want you all to stand up right now. I want you all to stand up. And I want this half of the room to chant All for Green, and I want this half of the room to chant Green for All. All right? All for Green! All for Green! Green for All! All for Green! Green for All! All for Green! Green for All! All for Green! Green for All!
happening in Oakland, and I taught him a little bit about global. And I was fortunate enough to be involved in some of his early political actions around police brutality and around racism that we were dealing with in the Bay Area. And there was an action where we were in the police halls of justice, actually calling out a racist police officer who had illegally killed an unarmed black man in San Francisco. And Van, as he was walking through these flanks of police when we were leaving the courtroom one day, he said to the officers, you know, this is what democracy looks like, get used to it. And I heard that line, this is what democracy looks like. And when I went to Seattle, I started a little chant up there, and just with my little affinity group, and we were walking around going, this is what democracy looks like. I mean, it was kind of geeky and cheesy. But the next thing is it caught wildfire, and I was hearing it everywhere. And I would go to other cities after that, and everyone was chanting, this is what democracy looks like. And we as a movement need to make sure that what democracy looks like is inclusive. So it's got to look like more than just what's in this room. It's got to be more than just a student movement. It's got to be every race, every age, people in labor, in every sector. So that is our work, is to really fulfill the dream of those words. And what democracy looks like is every one of us. So I really want to make a point about that. And that was one of the criticisms after Seattle. And that's one of the lessons learned for us, is that movement needed to be even more inclusive and reach even deeper and be built in really, really authentic relationships. So, and I also wanted to mention, just do a shout out. I like doing shouts out to my mentors and where I got my little ideas from. And I want to give a shout out to my moms, Chagi-Starr, who loves their mom in this room? Shut down. That's my mom. She's 5 feet tall and fiercer than anyone in this room. When all of us put together, she doesn't take anything. And she's not afraid of nothing. She sits down in front of police cars and meditates. She goes, I'm not moving. You can't take our people away. And she's lived in Oregon for a long time. And I just wanted to do a shout out because the anti-nuclear movement of the 80s is not talked about that often in our movements today. But it's really an important movement that was successful. The reason we don't have nuclear power plants in all of our backyards, which was planned at that time, is because people stood up and said no, and they put their bodies on the line, and they were willing to get arrested and do whatever it takes in a nonviolent movement to stop the nuclear industry at that time. And we may very well have to do it again in honor of that work and in honor of the future generation. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the anti-nuke folks. Who's an anti-nuke folk in this room? All right, so as folks know, I wear a couple hats, and one of them is as a cultural organizer, and I've led a lot of projects involving art and culture and giant puppets and street theater, and the reason for that was that I came out of college as an artist and a dancer and a choreographer. Yeah, and dancers, this is fun. Who's dancing? Okay, cool. All right, we gotta play tomorrow. We can make up some dances. But basically, I felt like there was something really lacking in the artist community that I was part of. The artists weren't responding to the issues of our time. And then I was going to kind of activist things and was bored. I was like, okay, how many times can we say 1, 2, 3, 4, we don't want anything anymore, whatever it is.